In this video, we're going to make a few improvements to this to-do list. So here is the new version that we're going to try and make. It has a new command, which is delete. And on top of that, the list command has changed the way that it prints to-dos out. So I'll show you what this looks like. I'll refresh the page, and I'll start by adding a new to-do. And let's add in kill Voldemort. And this time, it tells me kill Voldemort added to the list. And then if I look at the list, I get this nice little printout where every item is on its own line. What we used to have before is that it just printed the whole array on one line. So now we get them on separate lines, and then also I can delete one by typing delete, and it asks me for an index. So let's say I want to delete kill Voldemort. I accomplished that task. I type the number 1, and it tells me to do is removed, and I could verify that by typing list, and I see now my list only has one item. So that's what we're aiming for here. Let's go ahead and get started by adding some of these features to our old version of the app. The first thing I want to do is just demonstrate how our list command currently works. So I'll add something new, just some random letters, and now if I type list, it just prints the array all on one line. So what I want to do instead is print it all on separate lines, like we had over here, where we got this nice asterisk, dividers, and then in between we have 0, by new turtle, 1, and so on for every to-do that we have. To accomplish that, we can't just console.log all to-dos. We're going to need to loop through the to-dos and print out each one individually. So we have a few choices. We could use a for loop or a for each loop. I'm going to use for each because that's what I prefer, but it's really just a matter of preference. So to-dos.forEach, we give it this function, and we'll just put to do in there. Remember, that's just a name that we make up, a placeholder, and all we'll do is console.log to do. And then we'll get rid of this and save. So we're going to loop through to-dos, just give it a name to do. That's a placeholder for each individual to do, and we just print out each to do. Refresh the page. Let's add a new one. Random letters again. Now let's list. And now we have 2 lines. So the next step is going to be adding in those numbers. With the for each loop, we don't immediately have access to the index or the number that each item corresponds to. We could do something a little bit hacky like this, where we would do todos.index of to-do, which would take by new turtle, plug it into to-dos, and then that would give us a number back. So that's not an ideal solution. What we can do is just add a second argument to our for each function. I'll call it index. It can be called anything, of course, maybe just I, and that's going to refer to the index. So the first one is going to be the item to do, and then this will be the index of that particular to do. So each time through, we get both of them. So for this first item, to do will be by new turtle, index will be 0. For this item, to do will be this whole string of letters, and I, or index, will be 1. So all we want to do is print that out. So the format that I followed was the number, the index, the to do, with a space between. So that looks like this. I plus, and then we need our colon and our space, plus the to do. Let's go ahead and test this out. So I'll refresh, and I'll add in a new to do. This time by Hogwarts textbooks. Hit OK. And now I'll type list. And I see I get both of my to-dos on separate lines, each one with a number next to it. Awesome. So the very last thing that I want to do is add those asterisks around the list like we have here. So that's very simple. All we need to do is a console.log ****. I think I did 10. It doesn't matter. And I'm just going to copy that before and then after the for each. And that will give us what we want. So I'll demonstrate that. Go to our version, refresh, and type list, and we get our little asterisk surrounding our list. So the next piece of functionality here is going to be delete. So I'm going to go back to my list.html, and I'm going to add a new list item just as the instructions here. So delete, and that will remove a specific to do. So the way that delete works is I first need to provide the index of what we're going to delete, and then we delete it. So I'm going to add in an else if input equals delete. We need to then ask for index of to do to be deleted, and then we need to delete that to do. So that's our steps here. First, to ask for the index, it's pretty straightforward. We'll just make a variable called index equals prompt, enter index of to do to delete. So that will give us the index, like 0, and then we need to use that index to remove that item from the to-dos array. And that's a little bit trickier. We actually haven't talked about how to delete something from an array aside from using pop and shift, but those only remove from the end of an array or the beginning. What we want to do here is potentially remove from anywhere inside the array. So there's another method called splice. And so I'll show you how we use splice. We're going to write todos.splice, and this will basically make a cut and remove a specific number of elements out of an array. So the first argument is where we want to make that cut. So that's just going to be the index the user provided. And then the second argument is how many items we want to delete following that index. So we only want to delete one item, so that's all we need. Todos.splice index 1. So that will ask the user, which to-do do you want to delete? Give me a number. Let's say the user types in 3, then todos.splice is going to find the item with index 3 and delete one item. If we added this, it would delete 10 items following that index. So we only want one. Let's go ahead and test this out in our browser. I'm going to refresh, and let's start by adding a few to-dos. So the first one, do the dishes. Definitely need to do that right now. Next one, do laundry. I can probably wait a few more weeks before I do that. And the last one here, eat dinner. Okay, so let's list them out. And we get this nice list here. Still, we have buy new turtle. So let's say I want to delete buy new turtle, either because I already bought a new turtle or I had a change of heart and I realized that turtles are probably the worst pet that you could ever own. So let's delete that. I need to type delete. Now it asks me for an index. So that is index 0. And it would be nice if we had a little feedback that said item deleted, so we can add that next. But to verify that it worked, if we type list, we see that our array has now changed. Now we no longer have buy new turtle, and we just have do dishes, do laundry, and eat dinner. So let's quit, and let's add in a little bit of feedback. Let's start, when you delete something, we'll console.log to do, let's say deleted to do, and save that. And let's do the same thing for when you add a to do. We'll do a console.log added to do, just so that we see what's happening. And while I'm here, I'm noticing that this loop is getting a little bit long. So what we probably want to do is break this out into separate functions. So we're going to refactor this. So functionally, nothing is going to change about how it works. It's just a matter of how the code is organized. So here's how I would like it to work. We have a separate function here. I'm going to copy all of that and cut it out, and our function will just be called list to-dos. And that's all that we're going to put inside of this if input is equal to list. Then we'll go down here and define list to-dos, and we're just going to paste that code in, and that's all. Just like this. And we're going to repeat the same thing. So if the user inputs new, we're going to copy this code, cut it out, and we're just going to call a function we're going to write called add to do. Then I need to write my function, add to do, paste that code in, indent this properly, and save. One more. If a user enters delete, we're going to add a new function called delete to do. So we're going to create that down here, function delete to do, and paste that code in, space it correctly, and now we should be good to go. So you can see that we didn't really change the functionality at all, but we cleaned this logic up a lot. So our loop is much shorter and easier to see what happens. If a user enters list, list the to-dos. If a user enters new, add to-do. If a user enters delete, delete the to-do. And then check and ask for input again and repeat the whole process. So let's just verify that it works. Refresh the page. What would we like to do? Let's do list. And we get our list. Let's go ahead and add a new to-do. Finish. Dishes. Let's list again. And we get our two to-dos listed. Now if we remove one, delete. This time I did buy a turtle, index 0. I'm going to remove that. I get my message deleted to do, and let's go ahead and quit. And it tells me, all right, you quit the app. So that's all we're going to do for now. There are a few things that I want to summarize. The first of which is that we used a for each to list out the to-dos, and we could pass in a second argument, could be named anything, and that refers to the index of every item that's passed in. The other thing that we did is learned about splice. And splice is how we deleted a specific item from the array. It takes two arguments, the position of the thing to be deleted, and then a number of how many items to delete after that index. The last thing that I want to talk about here is that we refactored things into separate functions. So even though we didn't call these functions more than once, we only wrote them one time, it's more about organization and making our code simple and short inside of this logic-heavy loop.